Hey everyone, in this session I'm going to cover OSPF stub areas, their configuration and verification. Stub areas are often described by the LSA types that aren't allowed through them, so let's begin with a quick review of the LSA types used to exchange information about the OSPF topology. Type 1 is the router LSA, and it's sent by all routers describing links and neighbors the router has in that area. Type 2 is the network LSA sent by the designated router in a multi-access network, and it describes routers on the network segment just for that designated router. Type 3 is the summary LSA sent by an area border router, and it describes networks in other areas. If we remember right, Type 1 and Type 2 LSAs don't leave the area, so if you need to learn, obviously we do need to learn about other areas. We need to have that mechanism so we can move beyond the one area. But because Type 1 and Type 2, they don't leave the area, the Type 3 LSA is used then to describe networks in other areas. The Type 4 ASBR, or Autonomous System Boundary Router Summary LSA, so the ASBR summary, is generated by an area border router to describe reachability to Autonomous System Boundary Router. The Type 5 is the AS External LSA, and it's generated by an ASBR, and it generates information about external routes. And the Type 7 Not So Stubby Area, or NSSA External LSA, is generated by an Autonomous System Boundary Router in a Not So Stubby Area. That is information about redistributed routes, and it's only in a Not So Stubby area. Our OSPF stub areas, then, we have our stub, our totally stubby, our not so stubby, and our totally not so stubby areas. A stub doesn't allow for Type 4 and 5 LSAs into the area, so no external LSAs. We're not learning about our redistributed networks. The totally stubby doesn't allow for Type 3, 4, or 5 LSAs into the area, so we're not learning about routes outside of our area or external or redistributed routes. Our not so stubby area doesn't allow for Type 5 LSAs, but it does allow for locally redistributed routes in, and it uses a Type 7 LSA to advertise the external network. Our totally not so stubby area behaves like a totally stubby area, meaning no Type 3, 4, or 5 LSAs, but allows for a locally redistributed network using the Type 7 LSA. All of our stub configuration, all of our stub area configuration is done in the OSPF process. And we'll begin with configuring and verifying just our basic stub area. So as we begin our stub area, again, doesn't allow for Type 4 and 5 LSAs into the area. All routers in the area need to be configured as a stub, and it'll generate a default route. And the command to do this is under the OSPF process, area, the area number, and stub. And again, we will configure. I'm just going to go through each of them real quick, and then we'll go through our configuration and verification. Our totally stubby area is Cisco proprietary. It doesn't allow for Type 3, 4, or 5 LSAs into the area. A default route is injected. The area border router is configured with the no summary keyword, and the internal routers are configured as stubs. So the configuration on, say, the edge or the area border router is area, the area number, stub, and then no summary. And then the internal routers are area, the area number, and stub. And then our not so stubby area doesn't allow for Type 5 LSAs, but does allow redistributed routes in using a Type 7 LSA to advertise the external network. It doesn't automatically inject a default route. If you wanted to inject a default route, you need to use the keywords default information originate on the area border router. So again, we would have area, the area number, and not so stubby, or NSSA, sorry. And then on the internal routes, area number, NSSA. And if you wanted it to inject a default route, then our area border router would have the command area, area number, NSSA, and then default information originate at the end of that. And then lastly, our totally not so stubby area behaves like a stubby area, but allows for the locally redistributed network using a Type 7 LSA. And that is done by doing the area number, NSSA no summary. Looks familiar, doesn't it? Just a little different keyword there. On the area border router, and then internally, the internal routers are area number, and then NSSA. So let's go ahead and look at the topology we're working with and start configuring and verifying each of these. Working with a pretty basic configuration here. We've got router 1 and 2. Remember, OSPF set the link. So here's our area 4. And I did multiple areas and a redistributed. So we're actually running EIGRP here, and it's being redistributed into OSPF to show up as an external network. And then here is our area 0. And then on this link, I've got area 2. And we're actually going to use area 2 as our different stub areas as we configure each different kind. Let's go ahead first and just configure our basic stub between in area 2. So between our R1 and R2, we'll configure and verify our basic stub information. I'll bring over R2. We'll start with that, and then we'll move to R3's terminal connection. All right, so I brought R2 over. Let's first verify our network. So if we do a show IP route on R2, and mostly after this we'll be verifying R3, but we have our area 4 or our inter area route, and then our OSPF area. So let's go to R3 because that's the one that's going to change a lot that we're going to need to verify. So I do a show IP route here, and this is with no stub information happening. We're just running our OSPF on our 3 different areas, area 4, area 0, and area 2, and our redistributed, our EIGRP networks that are being redistributed into OSPF. So we show our inter-area route. This is our area 0 route with our 192.168.1.0. Our other one is 4.0, and then we have our external OSPF route that's being redistributed from EIGRP. That's a 10.11.1.0. So we see that. Let's go back over to our picture here. And again, 1 is area 0. 4.0 network is area 4. And then here we have our, on R2, we're redistributing, I'm running basically EIGRP and redistributing that into OSPF. So in R3, we're sitting in area 2 here, and we're seeing the OSPF area network, or I'm sorry, OSPF area 0 network, the OSPF area 4 network as inter area, and we're seeing our EIGRP that's redistributed into R2. We're seeing that on R3 as an external OSPF route. So we're getting everything. We're not filtering anything at this point. Now let's go ahead and configure our OSPF area 2 as a stub. And remember, area 2 is going to filter out our external routes. So let's see that it does that. I'm sorry, area 2 is not going to, our stub area that we're going to configure in area 2 will filter out our external routes. So let's go to R2 and configure that. We just get regular classic OSPF running. So we do a router OSPF 1 area. And the number is 2 because that's when we're going to make the stub. And we just type stub in there. And we go into router 3. You notice we're losing our adjacency for a moment because their flags aren't going to match. Big T, router OSPF 1. And then our stub configuration, area 2 stub. And then we're going to give them a moment to update. And our neighbors are going to go down. They're going to reset. And then they're going to come back up. So now let's verify a routing table on R3. Right? Because what should we see? If we configured this area as a stub, I should get a different pen color. So if we configured this as a stub, the whole area is going to change, right? We're going to do stub, we're going to do totally stubby, we're going to go not so stubby, and we're going to go totally not so stubby. So this term here is just a general term, but right now it's simply just a stub between this, in this area of, in area 2 right now. So what should we lose in R3? In R3, the route we should lose is our E2 route, right? Our external route that we were getting from, that's being redistributed into R2, and we should gain a default route. So let's see if that happened. We'll just do the do command. So if I do show IP route, and we did. We see that our external, our E2 route is gone, but it's been replaced with a so-called inner area default route. So we've configured this correctly. One of the things I wanted to do, and actually we'll go back, I'm going to get rid of, so now we've got to do a totally stubby area. And what does the totally stubby get rid of? The totally stubby should also then get rid of these inter area routes here. If we type end here and we do a show IP OSPF, a show IP OSPF database, that allows us to see the different LSAs that it has. So our router LSA type 1, our network LSA type 2, and our summary LSA type 3. And these are this is the information we have that's been provided by those LSAs. And you'll notice, so we have our, where'd it go? I'm scrolling, sorry. Yeah, so our router, our network, our summary. And then we also have our router for the router ID of 5.1. We have our type 1, type 2, and type 3. Sorry, type 3. Let's go into R2. Do a show IP OSPF database. And then there, what I wanted to show you is that we also have our type 5 here, because we haven't filtered out a type 5 on R2 yet, right? It's coming into R2. It doesn't get filtered until area 2. So we still have our type 5 external LSA, which we can read in the show IP OSPF database. So if you do a show IP OSPF database, if I want more information other than the summary information, I can add a keyword to the database command. So if I hit a question mark afterwards, you can see things like, if I want more information about our type 1 LSAs, I can use the keyword router at the end of this command. If I want more information about our type 2 LSAs, I can use the keyword network at the end. So each of these keywords are going to give us just more detailed information about the specific LSA type. So for example, if you want to see more information about the type 5 AS external, you'd use the command show IP OSPF database external. I can do that real quick. I know this wasn't really meant to be information about LSAs, but I digress. And so then we get our more detailed information about our type 5 external, such as our link state ID, the router that advertised it. So this is router 2, right? The external network is 10.11.10. Anyway, so you can get more information there. So far we've configured a stub. Now let's go ahead and configure a totally stubby. To configure a totally stubby, we need to take our area border router here, which is this R2. He's our area border router between area 0 and area 2. And area 2 is the one we're configuring with our different stub configurations. To make to make area 2 a totally stubby area, all we need to do is add the no summary keyword at the end of the stub command. So if we go back, right, and go into R2, which is where we're at, and we go to router, OSPF 1, whoops, spell OSPF correctly. Then we do area 2 again, and it's an area 2 stub, which we've already configured, but now we can just add the no summary keyword at the area border router. The internal routers stay the same with just the area 2 stub command. They stay the same. It's the area border router that gets the no summary portion, and that will make area 2 then a totally stubby area. So now if we go ahead, let's go through and verify that in fact it is a totally stubby area. How would I see that it was a totally stubby area? Remember, totally stubby areas don't allow type 3, 4, and 5 LSAs. So I'm not going to see those inter-area routes anymore in R3. So if I go and I do a show IP OSPF route, that wasn't what I wanted because I wanted something a little obvious. It is in this information, but that's not what I wanted. Show, sorry, IP route. There we go. I want the nice, quick, easy, obvious part, the things we looked at before. So remember before we had two other inter-area routes in this mix of routing. We don't have that anymore. All we have is our one default route. Let's see if I scroll up. Sorry guys, let me do this to you. Okay, here's our previous show IP route before when we had it. No, this one here is with no stub configuration. We have our external route, and then if we scroll down in our work that we did, sorry. No, here. Sorry. And then we scroll down. After we configured a stub, then we ended up with our default inner area, but we still had our other inter-area routes. And now finally, after making area 2 totally stubby, go all the way to the bottom of the work we just did, we notice that our other inter-area routes are missing, right? No type 3 LSAs, no summary area LSA information. So far we've done a stub and a totally stubby area. Let's do a not so stubby area. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete my stub configuration, and we'll configure a not so stubby. I'll pause this while I delete it. All right, so I cleared all that stub and all the totally stubby stuff that we did. So we did a stub, which was just area 2 stub on both routers. We did totally stubby, which on the area border router was area 2 stub, no summary command, and then on the internal to that area 2, the router 3 was area 2 stub. Now we want to do a not so stubby area and then a totally not so stubby area, and then that's it for this one. But I just want for you to verify that in fact I did roll back everything. Let's do a show IP route, and we can see again, now we see our external route again and our inter area routes again. If I do a show IP OSPF database, move my cursor out of the way, I always have a problem with that, and hit enter. We see all the usual. I mean, you're gonna see, we're seeing our router network summary for our area. And then, but the big thing I want you to notice is we see our external again, our external LSA type. So we're good. Cleared off. No stub information is running, or no stub type configuration is running. Let's configure our not so stubby area. And remember, a not so stubby area doesn't allow for type 5 LSAs, but will allow for local redistribution of routes as a type 7 LSA. And I'm not going to originate a default route. I'm just going to show you the difference between the two. So I won't do the default information originate at the end of my command, but you could do that. So again, router, I'm on router 2 right now, and we'll do router 3. Router OSPF 1, area 2, NSSA. So similar to that basic stub. I mean, the commands are somewhat intuitive if you know the names. I mean, remember, just a stub area was area 2 stub. A totally stubby area was area 2 stub, no summary. A not so stubby area, the command is area, the area number, in this case 2. So area 2 NSSA. And surprise, a totally not so stubby area is going to be area, the area number, NSSA, no summary on the area border router. But now we're just doing basic NSSA. So we'll go ahead and hit enter there. And we're going to go do it on router 3 as well. Whoops. There we go. And we'll let it come back up. So you had to go down, then it comes back up. Now let's verify our routing table. So let's do a do show IP route. Perfect. So what are we not getting? Remember, this used to be an E2 route, right? This used to show up as an OSPF external type 2 route. Now it's showing up as an OSPF NSSA external type 2. So it shows up, but it uses the type 7 LSA instead for the local, just for the locally redistributed stuff. And that'll show up in our table as an N2. And we're still getting our inter-area routes because it's a not so stubby area, not a totally not so stubby area. I swear sometimes these things are like tongue twisters. You're trying to get it all out and it all sounds the same after a while. So we configured, if we just, how about if we do show run section OSPF, just to verify that you guys can see the router OSPF section. We did area 2 not so stubby. I already had our networks configured that before we started this video. If I go back to R2, do show run section OSPF. And again, here's our area 2. This is my redistributed IGRP that I talked about, so we could see our external networks. And again, we configured a not so stubby area. Our not so stubby area was configured in area 2 between R2 and R3. Last but not least, let's configure our totally not so stubby area. And this is going to be relatively simple. We're still in OSPF router configuration. I'm going to hit the up arrow to get back to our command of area 2 NSSA, and then we'll do a no summary. And what is this going to do again? Right, it's going to behave like a totally stubby area, so no type 3, no inter-area routes and no external routes, except for allowing the redistribution as a type 7 LSA. So we'll see that as a not so stubby external. If we go then back to R3 and do show IP route. Perfect. So now we don't see our inter-area routes. We see our redistributed route as a OSPF NSSA external type 2 route. And now, instead of our inter-area routes, we have a default route. So we configured them all correctly. So what if let's just type N, because we're just going to do a couple show commands. Let's do the first one. Let's do a show IP OSPF database. And the only thing I want you to see here is, now we have our type 7. We don't have a type 5. Earlier I showed you a type 5 when it was just running regularly. Now we have our type 7 LSA because it's a not so stubby area. And only not so stubby areas are going to have these type 7 LSAs. And the other thing, what else did I want to do? Oh, just to verify the show run, right? Show run, just the section, just so you can see again what it looks like configured in comparison. So this is the internal router. Let me get rid of some of my ink here. Let me do that first. All right, so I just get rid of some of my ink real quick again, just to kind of go back through this. So what did we do so far? We did a stub. We did a totally stubby area. We did a not so stubby. I know I'm not doing the whole, I'm being a little lazy with the whole acronym there. And we did a totally not so stubby. And that's what we're currently at, is the not so stubby. This is our area border router where we change things up. As far as when we went from stub, so when we configured just the stub area, then both routers were configured the same, right? Area number, the keyword stub. When we did totally stubby, the area border router still was the area 2 stub, but we added the no summary keyword. And then with our not so stubby again, area border and our internal to this area router here configured the same. Area 2 not so stubby, or I'm sorry, area 2 NSSA. But then we went to totally not so stubby, and then we just added the no summary again only at our area border router. So it's the area border router that's getting that no summary keyword. And we do the totally not so stubby. It does inject a default route for our inter area. So our inter area, we're not accepting those type 3 LSAs, but we're injecting a default route to get to, these networks we don't know about. It shortened up our routing table for sure, and then we just use a default route for those inter area routes. And then it kept our external route, but as a type 7 or an NSSA route. So again, here's the configuration, what it looks like in R3 for an NSSA or not so stubby, and then what it looks like in R2. So if we do a show run section OSPF, we see that in our area we use the no stubby. I think that's it for this one. We covered briefly the different types of LSAs and configuring the different OSPF stub areas that are available to you. So that's it.